This is the cinematic introduction for the 2004 game Godzilla Save the Earth, and I just remade it using modern visual effects because it's my favorite piece of Godzilla media. To do this, the first thing we need, like always, is a 3D model, or in this case, 3D models. Luckily, being the Godzilla guy, I already had a head start. However, this old model is inaccurate and not up to my current standards. I made it from my old videos where I had to have 10 Godzillas on screen at once, so I couldn't go all out on just one model as I didn't want my brain or computer to explode. But considering that I just bought a 4090, my mental health was apparently too stable, and I even had money left over to buy a fire extinguisher, I wanted to try and go all out for this. So I brought my old model into ZBrush, cranked up the polygons, and decided to sculpt every scale by hand to try and make it as accurate to the real suit as possible. Once I had finished and gone to therapy, I brought it in for texturing, which is where I give it color and try to make it look like a real thing instead of just polygons. I then brought it back to Blender to give it a skeleton, which will allow me to animate it later on. With this, we had our finished model of Godzilla 2000.
Godzilla 2000!
Next up is my personal favorite, Kiryu, or Mechagodzilla 3 for you heathens. Thankfully, I already had quite a high quality model of him, so he just needed a subdivision and some procedural scratches and highlights for those shots where we get really up close.
Mechagodzilla 3!
Actually, I don't like that. Give me 1 second.
Kiryu!
Hell yeah. For King Ghidorah, the clues definitely tell us that it's supposed to be Heisei Ghidorah, at least visually. But my Heisei model is really outdated, and I spent all my time sculpting Godzilla's scales. So remaking Ghidorah from scratch was out of the question. Seeing the original again, none of what we see is really consistent with only one version, so it gave me an excuse to forego accuracy and instead use this fabulous Shin Ghidorah model from our friend Bynate.
Shin Ghidorah!
And now last and least, for Megalon and Gigan, nah, I'm just kidding, Gigan is pretty cool, and Megalon... But for them, I simply downloaded pre-existing models and gave them both a slight retexture to make them look extra sexy.
Gigan! Megalon!
Once all the models are ready to go, it's time to start the animation. Now typically, this is where I would spend the next couple of days animating them by hand, which I definitely did for all of them except Godzilla. Considering Godzilla has traditionally been a guy in a costume, there was no more fitting thing than to do the modern equivalent of that and try to do motion capture for the big G. So I got my very expensive motion capture suit from Xsense, whose very tight shirt reminds me that I should lock my pantry after 3 AM, and once I was strapped in, I ran through the entire scene and just really tried to channel my inner 300-foot tall monster. I then brought this motion data back into Blender and applied it to my skeleton. At first it looks pretty wonky, but this is where retargeting comes in, which allows me to put everything where it needs to be. What was really amazing about this is that in less than a day I was able to have completed and super high quality animations, which would have taken me at least a couple of days to try and get to this fidelity. And the last step inside Blender was to add in that special sauce, which is applying wiggle to things like the spines and thighs, which makes the monsters look and feel heavy and much more realistic. Once all the animations are finished, I poured everything into Unreal Engine so I can do this scene build and get our final image. This is just a back and forth between getting something that works for the scene and looks good on camera. If you remember seeing the animations from earlier, you might have noticed one glaring issue: no tail movement. The solution is to make a physics asset so certain bones from the model can interact with their surroundings if they're set to simulate. I'm then able to record this motion and apply it back into our shots. But I bet you thought I almost forgot about the most important character, the fisherman, but I didn't. While there are a few different ways to create a 3D human, I wanted to try my hand at Unreal's metahumans, which are super high fidelity human models. So I opened up the metahuman editor, which works in your browser for some reason, and I customized the metahuman to match it as closely as possible to the original one. I also had to make him go balding, as it makes adding a cap to him much easier. Sorry guy, I again motion captured his movement and then exported him out to Blender so I could apply this motion. This is also where I gave him his sweater and his cap, and now it's all back into Unreal.
Fisherman!
The scene build was relatively simple. I made the sonar inside of After Effects and added it to my scene, and the last step was the facial animation, which I really want to delve into more in a future video. I was going to do the same thing for the singer girl, but I was tired and lazy at this point. So I instead got this piece of stock footage, got AI to rotoscope it for me, which was fantastic, then just added this background and made it glitch out into the G4 sign. I can then just add this into my scene along the Pipeworks logo to give credit to the original creators. For the traffic, I created a long line of cars, then simply scattered them around as needed, and the last step is just ensuring the camera is sufficiently far away. For the footsteps, I simply took these debris pieces and animated them coming out of the ground with every step. With a little particle system, it looks pretty great. The last thing I needed were the flying saucers. I could make these quickly, but I opted instead to get these ones to have them be a bit more modern. And now, with all the visuals finished, I could hit render, which would take around 12 hours for the entire thing. So, needing a break to recharge my batteries for the final stretch, I got my old Godzilla DVDs and popped one in. But in my tired stupor, I didn't realize I had popped in Godzilla's Revenge, the worst Godzilla movie, and I instantly died. The only cure was a better Godzilla movie, and luckily, my laptop was at arm's reach. Unfortunately, being Canadian meant nothing good was available, but I didn't fret because with NordVPN I was able to switch my location to Japan. I put on a good one and was instantly revived. Not only that, but now NordVPN is protecting my browsing to stop attacks from hackers and prying eyes that may want my data. It's also one of the fastest VPNs in the world, meaning that you'll get the same internet speed with all the extra benefits. You also get protection for up to 6 devices, meaning your information and traffic are always protected. And so that something like this doesn't happen to you, I'm here giving you a totally risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee with my code FILMCORE to receive 4 months free on a 2-year plan. So don't wait and download it now. Once it had finished rendering, I added music and then brought it in for sound mixing, which is where I add sound effects. The last step was to do some light post-processing, and now, with everything out of the way, here is our modern remake of the Godzilla Save the Earth introduction.
Godzilla!
And so, needless to say, I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I hope I made the original creators and my 10-year-old self proud. But I only gave myself 30 days to do this, and I had a lot of fun, which makes me wonder what I could do if I had a little more time to make something of my own. It's going to take a while. Subscribe.